What is going on there, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. No, you are not seeing things. We are starting mostly on time. What has the world come to? This. I hope this isn't a sign of the end times, because I think we're really just finding our stride here on Nocturnal Transmissions. But I hope you guys are, had a good week, had a good weekend. I hope your Memorial Days were enjoyable. As ever, hosting this lovely show with me is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on, guys?
Yes, and we, if you didn't see it in the notification, what you have in store. We have the usual movie review. This week is an anime. It's not our first animated film, is it?
No.
Oh yeah, you're right. Because last week, because the couple weeks before we did Big Hero 6, but definitely a classic, which is Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. And we also have a few other discussion topics that I don't want to give away that much detail, but they're definitely good ones.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yes. So sit back, relax. Pour yourself a drink, and let's get this conversation started. Just really quickly though, Rob, how was your Memorial Day?
My Memorial Day was mainly spent working.
Mm-hmm.
The only day I really had off was Sunday, though I didn't really take Sunday off because I was kind of on call because we had someone new coming in on Sunday. So I woke up at 4:30 just in case anything all hell broke loose. So, but what it allowed me to do is I was able to. One of my Memorial Day traditions for any race fan out there, it is the greatest day in racing, Memorial Day Sunday. The day starts with the Monaco Grand Prix in the morning for F1. Then you have in IndyCar, you have the Indianapolis 500. And after that is the NASCAR race, which is their one of their crown jewel events, the Coca-Cola 600. And I didn't get the chance to finish watching all the races because we ended up doing some filming for the podcast. But I'm finishing that up now. But for the most part, during the day, I was watching racing and just kind of getting caught up on rest because this week is going to be pretty brutal at work. So, as it always is after a holiday weekend.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I came over to record, you had a race on.
Yeah, I was finishing up watching the Indy 500, which was one hell of a race, by the way. I mean, they a lot of lead changes, a lot of action, especially the last 20 laps. I mean, they swapped the lead probably a good 4 or 5 times, between the first and second place driver.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of crazy action. So I always love a good race, and I'm actually getting ready after we're done here. I had started watching the NASCAR race that I recorded, but I'm gonna try to finish that after we finish the live stream.
Cool. Awesome.
But that's my Memorial Day tradition. That's what I do. But I also utilize the off day on Sunday to make sure we got a episode recorded for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think will be an interesting topic. I definitely learned a lot.
Yeah, it was yeah, I think it was also good to have the perspective. I mean, I don't know how much we want to be letting out. But,
no, I don't want to let anything up, but I think it
right.
gave us a different perspective on things. One that obviously you and I probably don't have,
Right.
and from someone that I believe is very knowledgeable on that subject too.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot. that some of it I knew, a lot of it I didn't know, and it was great. I was fascinated by the whole thing. So I think it'll be a good episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that out to you guys
Very
as
different from our more recent episode that just came out.
yeah, definitely. I mean, just a shift, just a shift in terms of subject matters. For me, for my Memorial Day, is it was actually kind of interesting because my I didn't really have any plans for Memorial Day until my father called me and said, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing on Monday?" I was like, "Nothing." And it's like, "Oh, you want to go fishing?" And remind you, that was the call that I got while we were filming. That was my dad. Yeah, and so my dad calls me and is like, "Hey, yeah," I was like, "I want to go fishing." I was like, okay. And so, I so after we wrap, after everything, I get home and it's about midnight, and my dad wants to wake up at at the butt crack of dawn, and so I get in the shower, so because I had product in my hair from the day, and so I wanted to get that out. Plus, I knew if um, I wouldn't have time in the morning to take a shower, so just trying to think ahead. And by the time I get to sleep, it's like close to 1, and then 4 a.m. comes along, and I'm up. I have to go. Um, and most of the day was pretty fun. My cousin actually went with us, and it was a good time just hanging out with him. But I think we were all pretty tired because you know during the times that we didn't talk, we were all pretty quiet. And I think on occasion I would look over on either side of me, and my dad and my cousin. I think we're kind of nodding off. Um, uh, but I mean, it was still a good time. We went up to Pyramid Lake here in the Los Angeles region, which is not close to LA at all. It's from LA proper. It's a good like 50 to 65 miles away, and and it's like it's about another 30 to 40 minutes past Castaic Lake. I mean, if you're familiar at all with the Los Angeles or like the Los Angeles County area. Um, and yeah, I mean, I remember going there as a child, and going with my dad, and catching striped bass or catfish or bluegill or what have you. But this, it's definitely changed in terms of the offerings because we weren't catching anything bigger than a smartphone
Yeah,
in terms of the striped bass.
right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Because I remember my dad, like throughout the entire trip, he kept reminiscing about the time that one time, a fish was so big it dragged in his fishing pole into the water. Because it was so huge. And I mean, it's confirmed because my dad took my older sister fishing, and yeah, she's the one that lost the fishing pole to that fish.
Yeah,
So she can corroborate that that the pole was actually pulled in by the fish, and I too have caught my share of monsters at that lake. Um, so yeah, so I kind of
your dad
felt from
was like a
I
little
kind of felt
famous
my
too.
dad. I kind of felt my dad
Yeah,
saying like, man, these why are you catching these little small fries? Where are the big monsters?
with that story with his pole getting dragged into the water, it's like he almost had an old man in the sea moment.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. So yeah, so that was my Memorial Day weekend. It was still, I still enjoyed it, and and I told this to Robert beforehand, but as soon as I got back, I was so tired that I just conked out like um, around what is it, like 5, 6 o'clock, in the evening, and I stayed conked out until 8 this morning.
Damn. Yeah.
So yeah, but like what Robert was saying about like how lack of sleep really does, hinder, kind of impair your cognitive abilities. I'll attest to that because there are times where like I felt like super loopy and my balance was off and just just the whole thing.
Do you ever get to the point like where if because I've noticed it happens to me more now than it ever has, but like, when I don't get enough sleep, like especially like when you're kind of like you've been up for a long time, do you start to like hallucinate somewhat? Even though you're awake, but like you're also like you also feel like you're part of like there's things that you see
There,
that like really aren't there.
right, where everything has like some this kind of dream quality to it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have felt
It's
it, and I'm pretty sure I felt that the other day.
it is one of the most horrifying things like cuz you know it's not real,
Hmm.
but you're also not sure and it's just you feel you're it's I feel very like anxious when that like is happening because I feel
Hmm.
like I have to be like super like I'm like forcing myself to stay awake.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's like, oh man, you can just it just oh it bugs me.
So yeah, I thought I was going crazy, but the giant cockroach to my left assured me that everything was okay.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, I have found too that like especially when I don't get enough sleep and it's like I kind of push my sleep pattern to the limit.
Hmm.
Um, that I yeah, it takes me a lot longer to recover from that. Like, it's not like if I get like another, good 6 hours, or like, 5, 6 hours, I'm good to go.
Uh huh.
But no, it takes me a lot longer to recover. Even when I get like 8 hours, I wake up and I'm just like, oh, I still don't feel good at all.
Right. Yeah.
It's almost like
I
you're
think
hungover,
back.
like but not from like you don't feel sick, but like you still have that like hungover, don't want to get up,
Oh,
like
a form of
feeling.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about back in the day when I was in school and doing all nighters and then going to class. The very next morning. It's like, how the hell did I do that?
I had a friend who's a nutcase. He's a great guy, but he's a nutcase in a lot of ways. Where he would play games all night. Like it was me, my friend, and this guy, and we would I'd sleep over at his house. Our friend would stay up all night, play games. We'd be asleep. We'd wake up. He's still playing, and then he would have something to do that day.
Hmm.
But then he would come back and he'd play games all again all night, and he'd still be up. It's like, did you sleep at all? Like, and it's like, what the? You're a freak show. Like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Right.
I don't know how like there's some people that just have that extra gear sometimes.
Yeah. I mean,
Me,
that's the only explanation.
I don't have that gear anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I progressively lost that ability to just, I mean, maybe it just comes with age, but I don't want to necessarily believe that. It's just, I think if you keep yourself in, above, a little bit above average, uh, in terms of health, then, I think it could be possible to, extend that ability. I mean, as you get
True.
older, but I think, when you're younger, it just kind, you just kind of have like those natural reserves to handle that lack of sleep. But as you get older, I just think your body is just can't take that anymore. But if you keep yourself slightly above average in terms of health, then I think you still might be able to pull it off. But I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Don't hold me to nothing.
Yeah. I know I can do one day where where I stay up, like if I have to stay up, like because
Mm-hmm.
I know it's like, if I go to sleep now, I'm not gonna wake up in time,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll stay up and
Right.
I'll get stuff done, and like I'll be okay for a little bit, but I could not do that for like a second day in a row.
Right.
You know,
Not
it's like
another
I can
24
only
hours.
yeah, I can push myself to a certain limit, but like I don't have that like extra gear to kind of keep it going.
Right. All right. All right. Let's get into some of the topics.
Why don't
About
we
that.
start with your question to pose, Andy?
Okay, you want to go? Okay. All right. So you want to go with that route? Okay.
I figured like these are the little bit more serious, deeper topics that maybe aren't as kind of fun. So
Uh.
why don't we
Okay.
get the hard stuff out of the way and we'll get to the fun later.
Okay. All right. All right then. This is kind of a continuation on the abortion topic. That me and Rob here have weighed in. It seems like numerous times. Um, but just last week I had dinner with a friend. I haven't seen her in quite some times. And no, this isn't the friend from the Instagram post that I had mentioned previously. Different friend. And we were catching up, and I was asking how she was doing. She was asking me how I was doing. And asked me if if I was doing up to anything new, and I told her about the podcast, and so she got curious, and so she asked me more questions, and I guess like she asked if we covered politics um, on the show, and on this show, and then the main show, and I said yes. And then she asked me what I thought about abortion, and the way she asked was I think kind of a tell to where she lied. But it was, she asked me like, oh, I want, because I didn't want to talk about this. We're in a restaurant, we're in a public place. I didn't want to get into it. Not that I was afraid that, well, maybe a little bit afraid that, you know, I want to be fair here and say, that either of us would start, getting heated and like start causing a scene. But I just didn't, and I try to get out of it by saying, hey, I talk about politics all the time. It's kind of my job. I don't want to do it tonight. I just want to catch up with my friend. I just want to catch up with you and just, and have a good time. And she's like, no, no, no. I'm really, curious what a bunch of men think, about abortion. And I was like, okay. Right, right, exactly. This is the way that she said that. It's like she's like, "Oh, I want to know what a bunch of men have to say about abortion."
We're
And
terrible.
don't get me wrong,
We're
she,
men that have an opinion.
what was it?
It's terrible. We're men that have an opinion.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love this girl. She's great. Um, I mean, I will admit that we haven't known each other for that long, but we've had so far we've had really good adventures. Um, she's a down to earth kind of chick, and I really appreciate that about her. But anyways, I go into it, and I started laying out the case, whatever, and she just she pushes back, um, on what I have to say, and then I push back on what she has to say, and it kind of goes back, but it never gets adversarial. Which is more of like it's just more of a challenge on what we are saying to each other. I don't say like, "Oh, you fucking idiot, bitch." I don't. I you never got to that point.
Right.
Um,
Well, and I think too, like when it comes to, especially like when it's people that you care about, that your friends that like, even though they think differently than you, you're not going to come at them in such an adversarial way. It's like it's like listen, I can't compromise my viewpoints or my values,
mhm.
but this is the reason why I think this,
Right.
and it's like I don't really there's really not a lot that's going to change my mind based off of that, and for us, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I'm willing to hear the other side about, hear a different point of view, but when it comes like I've heard a lot of all the viewpoints when it comes to this topic,
Hmm.
and just my faith, science, all the stuff that we've talked about over the past several months concerning this is like I can't go on the other side. It's just to me it's an evil practice, and I
Hmm.
can't compromise. But you're not. But at the same time, I'm not going to say, well, deuces. It's like, and like you give them the double bird, and like you walk out, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's different. I understand.
Yeah. Um, but basically, all the usual talking points, and it's interesting because she actually made the like adoption argument about how it's like, oh well, you're just gonna put kids into a broken system and let them get abused or whatever. To which I reply, it's like, as opposed to killing them. You're saying that you would rather kill a baby than to put it through the foster care system.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
and see,
I mean,
that's
of course, and then of course, she argued like, it's a fetus, and I was like, and then I would keep replying back, well, it's a baby, and to which, it just kind of kept going back and forth, and then to which I finally had to call her out on it. It's like, well, it doesn't matter because you're still agreeing with me because fetus in Latin means little baby.
essentially that's what it means.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I think that's literally what it means.
yeah, I mean, essentially
Yeah,
it's
so I was
exactly
like,
what
yeah,
it means.
so essentially, you're agreeing with me that it's a baby, even though even if you use the phrase fetus, you're saying it's
Well,
a baby.
yeah, and it's like, well, and our friend Daniel, because sometimes he's a little bit more on the left leaning. I was like, Daniel, like if you look at like a lot of what these what people on your side of the aisle do, they change definition of words. So where
Right.
fetus, which is literally this is the meaning of the word, but it's used as more of a you know a negative connotation. It's like, oh, it's just a fetus. It's nothing. It's just this mass of cells.
Right.
That's essentially what they've made fetus out to mean.
Right.
And it's like, but that's not what it means. That's not the word.
Right. And I did try to not go like personal, or I mean, at least use or try to use personal anecdotes because because honestly, one, I didn't think of to use them because I wanted to try to persuade her without trying to do that. But then, secondly, at the moment, I didn't actually think about it, um, especially in like because one of the contentions she has is that it's not a life until it's out of the womb, and I wish I had thought of I wish I had thought to of this anecdote at the time, but my cousin just had a baby. A year old now. But when my niece, I'll just call her my niece, my cousin's kid, my niece, was born, she had a full head of hair,
Yep.
and so I would have said to my friend, it's like, so you're saying that my niece who was born with a full head of hair, meaning she was growing hair in the womb, that does not constitute life. I, you know,
Well,
I
I think, and
I think that would have I think that would have been a really persuasive argument. But
What
again,
happened is
I
that
try not to use like kind of personal anecdotes or try to appeal to emotion because that's essentially what she was doing the entire time.
yeah, and well, that's part of the problem too, because you look at this and a lot of people on the pro-abortion side are seeing it as like, oh, it's just some this like parasitic growth is like, and they use terms like reproductive rights. Well, the reproduction has already happened because when you look at this supposed clump of cells that you guys are looking at, it's if it was just a clump of cells, it wasn't like a life. Then why is it that the DNA sequencing that they find is it's a yes, it does have connection to the mother and the father, but it's its own unique DNA strand. It's a completely
Hmm.
different entity.
Right.
Um, and just the fact that for me, it's like, okay, well, that already scientifically is another person.
Hmm.
Sure, it's a growing person, but it's still a person. Same thing, and I would argue too, in a lot of ways, that like when we look in the rest of the animal kingdom, it's the same thing. These animals, like, yeah, they're not yet fully, they're not born yet, but they're still like it's a giraffe fetus or it's a tiger fetus or it's a dog fetus. It's still it's left to its own device. It's still a unique creation that's going to come out that's different from what it's coming out from.
Hmm.
And I'm sure there'd be a lot of hell if we were killing off you know baby dogs in the womb or whatever. Um, and I don't know. I think a lot of it. I think there's a good. I would think there's a lot of a strong majority of people who I think if they saw the truth revealed, because there's been so many lies from places like Planned Parenthood and just this baby sacrifice this baby sacrifice
Machine.
society that we live in now. Yeah, that this, and like I said, we've compared and contrasted this to the to slavery. uh it's kind of these are the same arguments that we were having way back then, like what makes a human, or it's like these, obviously these are we're considering these babies as subhuman, no rights. It doesn't matter if we kill them, use them, whatever. And
Hmm.
I mean, into a smaller extent, we're kind of doing that with kids, where it's like, it doesn't matter. We can, they want to take hormones, they want to hack off their genitals. You want to sell them into sex slavery or not really give a damn. It's kind of the same. We're having that same argument, what, 150, 200 years later, about, what makes a human. It's like you look back in history, it's like this is the same goddamn argument. And we always like we're in a time where we're blasting guys like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, because they held slaves. But yeah, that was part of the society back then. That was, yeah, it was a bad part of the society.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we're not making
it,
moral like judge. It was just part of the society. It wasn't it wasn't good, but it wasn't seen as bad either.
right,
It's it
and but
just
this is what's
was. It just
happening
was
now,
a thing.
because unfortunately abortion is a part of our society, and we're having the our friend Matt Wade brought up, it's like, are we at a point where we're going to be at a civil war again? And we're kind of having, like, I think maybe not necessarily in states seceding from the union or us actually going to fisticuffs between states, but it's kind of the same thing where states, there's some states that are going full on, like, no, we're gonna try to force the federal government to um, attack this issue, And you have the other states that are going completely the opposite direction, like New York and Virginia, where they're just like, ah, fuck it, we'll just, it doesn't matter, we'll kill it, even if it's just born, it's might as well just, we'll have a discussion.
Right. But that that was mostly the type of the conversation I was having with my friend. She tried to minimize the baby to a fetus. But mostly she was making emotional appeals. She's talking about, oh, women are forced. I was like, women are forced to have babies. Well, it's like, well, women are the only ones who can have babies. It's like women need access to healthcare. It's like killing a baby is not healthcare.
It's
and so
actually
on and
the
so on. And it's like,
exact reverse of that.
it's actually the reverse of that. And then I made and then I made the argument. It's like, well, because she kind of like mentioned, like, either cheekily or trying to make a serious point about, like, why should men have the right to make decisions over their body. And I said, well, I didn't say this, but I probably should have. But I was like, okay, well then, why should have men given the women the vote? Because it was men that decided to give women the vote. So, are you saying that that if men disagree with you, then they're not allowed to weigh in or have an opinion on something? But if they are for you, or are align with your opinion, or agree with you, then they can have an opinion.
Yeah,
And
like I
it's
said, it's a lot of, like, from that side of the aisle, it's because they don't have an argument.
no, they don't. Again,
If
because it's like,
if it's not a platitude, it's like it's an ad hominem attack,
yeah,
and it's just shouting. It's boxing the air essentially.
right,
There's nothing.
yeah, and
They're a bunch of Don Quixotes.
right, she's tilting at windmills. Um, and so it kind of went on, but luckily it didn't get contentious. We're for her, she was just this was just this is just an opportunity to hear someone with an opposing viewpoint. And she had even admitted to me that she used to be pro-life.
That's odd.
Yeah, but you know honestly, thinking back on the whole exchange, I I mean, I know you weren't there, but by the description that I gave, of my my defense, of what I put up to refute her, do you think I did a good job?
Well, I think it's tough because you do have, like I said, it's not just like you're not just speaking to someone that is on another side of the aisle. It's like it's someone that that you like being around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's going to change the and you weren't like expecting a arousing political debate, um and so a lot of times, like, yeah, in those situations, I think it's easy to get caught off guard. If you're, uh, whereas like okay, I'm gonna, if we have a conversation topic, although usually we tend to agree on things,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm prepared. Like there's stuff that, like, okay, I'm gonna these are like I want to hit these bullet points and kind of like look at things, okay, this is what this side's saying. Here's where our arguments are at and why these arguments are terrible. So I'm already like semi prepared. Whereas if I'm just going out for drinks with friends, like I'm not necessarily ready to go into to really go into a defense of you know, serious topics like this. And I maybe not necessarily in that regard, like of talking about abortion, but there's been times where I've been caught off guard in like theologically, in where people have like kind of we end up talking about religion, and yeah, they caught me off guard a little bit just because I wasn't ready to engage in that type of discussion. So yeah, it's easy to kind of look dumb in those instances, or maybe not necessarily like be ready or whatever. And a lot of times I'll be driving home or be at home, and I'll be thinking about that discussion the entire night. It's like, man, I really should have, I remember it's like, oh, I should have talked about this, or I should have mentioned that, or I should have said this better. And maybe there will come a time where you meet up again and you're better prepared. It'll better prepare you for having that type of discussion later on. So I don't. Yeah, of course, we could always do stuff better, but I understand like why you weren't like fully prepared to, go to battle.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't help but feel like I had somehow floundered, or I was worried that I wasn't putting out too much, I wasn't putting forth a persuasive enough argument, uh, or I just or maybe I'm not as read on the issue than as I think I am. But then I was thinking about it. I was just noting her responses to things, and like I was saying, it was all appeals to emotion, and I realized that I was arguing the wrong issue because her whole point of view on this is that women are oppressed, women are victims, and that is the issue that I should have that's the angle of attack that I should have come at this, because
Yeah,
she was making like, oh well, women, the women that live in rural areas, or women who have to travel outside their state to have an abortion. It's like, well, I did kind of push back on her. I was like, well, why can't women travel outside their state to get an abortion if it's illegal in their state? What's stopping women? Nothing. And I think, and and I realized that it wasn't it
it's not
wasn't
like we have
because
a series of Berlin
well, I
Walls.
not yeah, but it wasn't because I didn't change her mind, or I didn't get her to stop and think, because I wasn't addressing the real problem, which was her indoctrination. Her, like, she was brainwashed to think that women are victims, and they're oppressed, and all the things that the left need women to believe, to gain support, or to gain votes. And that's what I should have, and that's where I should have hammered her. I was like, well, like, how are you oppressed? And knowing this woman, I kind of, I know that she has bad experiences, or she's had bad experience with men, and she also had bad experiences with the church. And so, she has, she does have a skewed view on those things, and I think what my job should have been is to demonstrate what, someone who's more based, in, like, theologically, and also just, like, factually, what the difference is, and also point out, like, how she is not oppressed, or or a second class citizen, or whatever the left would have her believe.
Yeah, I mean that's really I think yeah, kind of being third party, uh, very very much removed from this conversation. But
Mhm.
yeah, that would probably be the better place to start at. It's like because a lot of this, like, oh well, women were, it's the Handmaid's Tale, and it's like that's what's going on right now, and it's like, okay, first of all, where, what laws, what socially acceptable act is kind of making women second class citizens? I don't see that anywhere.
Right, yeah, and I mean, if you want to talk about equality, like, why are you then advocating that women get the right to, kill innocent, people, and men don't? And like, and like, then all the examples that she was giving was like, oh, well, women, they have to have the baby alone, and da 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 da. It's like, oh, you're coming at this from a point of view of, a woman, who got knocked up by a shitty guy.
And see, and I kind of tried to make this argument last week, where it's like, yeah, it's like I'm fine with us making laws where like that doesn't happen, where guys like that are held accountable
Hmm.
to
Right, which
and
I did
not just
mention, which I
allowed
did
to
mention.
but abortion gives those guys, a get out of jail free card. It's like, ah, fuck it, you're just gonna kill it anyways. I don't have to do anything about it. It's kind of when we did our movie review of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I mean that was it was
Right, yeah, like, yeah, that abortion that I forget the character's name, but that abortion that girl had totally let off the guy, which was the scumbag guy, like
yeah, complete,
the
yeah.
literal scumbag guy that that my friend was railing against.
Yeah, and I'm fine with us maybe making laws where guys like that don't get away with it. But that doesn't happen when you kill the baby, because there's nothing for them to, like, there's nothing connecting them.
Yeah, you're destroying the evidence. You're literally destroying the evidence.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like we can't have a conversation about that because the baby's dead.
Right, and I mean, yeah, and it goes to, like, that story of that man who donated his semen to the fertility bank, and the woman who got fertilized by it tracked him down and sued him for child support payment, and won, even though that guy had no realistic expectations of being a father.
That's
He
why
just donated his
yeah,
stuff, and he just donated his stuff and had no expectations of being a father. But this woman still tracked him down and sued him for child support and won.
that is why I would never ever 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 donate my sperm to a sperm bank. Because I've been
Exactly.
seeing a lot of advertisements for, like, they're like, oh, we need sperm, and to donate to these fertility clinics. Like, yeah, you can go fuck yourself, because I ain't gonna. I'm not. I don't care how much money you're gonna pay me, because yeah, like you hear
Yeah,
stories like
because
that. It's like, yeah, fuck that.
yeah, I mean, again, my friend was making the point from, like, this woman who's, like, disadvantaged, or, like, who's left alone, who's been pumped and dumped essentially. And I was just like, well, why are you always going to the worst case scenario? What about a couple who's, like, who's been together for like 3 years and on their way to being, getting married, but then they just couldn't resist, and they had sex, and then whoops, they got pregnant. So, and what about them? Should they get an abortion? And, like, of course, she just she kind of brushed off that question. But it's like, it wasn't planned, but these two people who were on the track to getting married, maybe this pregnancy just moves up the timeline, but because it's unwanted, should they then get an abortion? But my friend, she just kind of brushed off the question.
Because it's like, yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Just like, well, I can't really answer that. It's like, well, exactly. It's like, obviously, like, it's a ridiculous thing. Like, of course not.
Right, yeah, and I mean, yeah, and I, again, hindsight being 2020, I should have uh you know uh brought up the case about that George, I think it was in Alabama, but the man who's suing Planned Parenthood for aborting his baby.
I hope he wins, and I hope he takes them to the fucking cleaners.
Seriously, yeah, I know. I should have brought up that a case study. It's like, well, what about the guy that wants the baby? You know, and all he's asking is for the woman to have the baby. He's not saying that he's gonna marry her. He just said he just wants to have the baby. And
He's
like
not
he
even
even
saying it wasn't. He wasn't even saying it's like I don't even need. It's like I don't even like need you to do anything other than just have the baby. I'll take care of everything else.
right, yeah. I mean, they were going out. This was my why didn't I think of this? But it was my example, almost exactly, because it was a couple and they were together for like 2 years. They're basically on the track to getting married, but then they did the deed and she got pregnant and he was ready to marry this chick and take care of this baby, but she went behind his back and got the abortion.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I really hope that guy wins.
Oh, seriously, I hope he fucking, not to be too crude here, but I hope he eviscerates them.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Yeah, I think that'd be poetic justice.
Of course, even if that does happen, we'll never hear about it in the media.
Of course not. Don't, yeah. I barely heard about this. But anyways, that was my tale. That was the question that I had to ask you. Is like, do you think I did a fine enough job defending my position? And I think under the circumstances,
I would say like yes and no because because it's not like you shied away. It's like, oh, I don't want you didn't necessarily shy away from the situation,
mm-hmm.
but it's also like you weren't ready, and it was like you didn't expect to like have this conversation with someone that you care about too. So it's like you weren't.
Yeah, but I think I think the only reason why is because she kept like making those appeals to emotion. And like and the level of indoctrination that she had, like, automatically made her impervious to any of my arguments.
My hope is that like maybe there will come another time where you see each other again, and it's like I was thinking about like what you were saying, and maybe you get not necessarily coming at like a hey gotcha like, and you're just doing this haymakers
Yeah, or
and
like a
shit,
sucker punch. It's like, hey, what's that?
yeah, but it's like I was thinking about our conversation from however long it is until you see her again, but it's like you mentioned these points, but it's like what I want you to think about these points here, what and kind of like about like how women are victims and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, well, if you it's like think about this and this and this, and I just it's like I'm not trying to force anything on you, but think about these things, and like, and if you want, you can come up, you can think about it, give me an answer, and it's kind of like come at it in like a nice way, but like it's like kind of attack those points and give them something to think about. I'm reminded of it's kind of a biblical way of coming about it, like when we're called to share the gospel. It's like we're not going out to save people. That's not our job. What our job when we're sharing the gospel is to share about the truth of what happened. It's like here's why I believe it. Here's the truth that's out there. I want you to think about it. It's like I'm not trying to convert you on the spot, like, or anything like that, but just think about these points, and I may never see you again. Well, in some cases, like if you're talking to someone that you've just met, it's like I may never see you again, but think about these things and just kind of let that linger. And for some people who, if they're intellectually honest, they'll think about them, and either they'll not change their minds and they'll just kind of like go about their way. But there's a lot of people that like do end up like, damn, that's actually something like it's kind of the asking questions. It's like, that's kind of this proposes a problem to my worldview, and maybe something changes.
All right. All right. All right. For your turn.
All right, riddle me this, Andy. Yeah. So I was having a conversation with our friend of the podcast, Lane's Lair, this past week, and we ended up we were having dinner together, and we were just kind of sharing like about like church in general, and um, and I don't know if this is something that you noticed, but as someone like me who I didn't necessarily I didn't grow up at church for one.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a Christian much later in life,
Mm-hmm.
and when it comes to church, well, it's like I do like want to utilize the gifts that God has given me to teach and share biblical knowledge with the younger generation. Hopefully, prepare them to be better prepared to share the gospel, to know the Bible, and to kind of help defend themselves, like when to kind of caretake the faith as they grow older. But a lot of times I feel like where I'm no longer of the world. I don't belong in like just this godless worldly society. But at the same time, but I come from that, and I understand the viewpoint of the world. Whereas when it comes to church, it's like, yeah, I'm part of the church community. I'm a faithful believer in Christ, but at the same time, I don't necessarily feel like I belong at church either. And I always feel like I'm always at odds with kind of like these Ned Flanders types, where it's like, yeah, where they use all this kind of flowery Christian language, but if like you don't follow, like if you're not this like holier than thou Christian, it's like they kind of give you this attitude of like kind of like they look down your nose at you like they're some aristocrat from. And I don't know if I don't know if it's necessarily because I'm a guy that because I tend to joke around a lot. You know that, Andy. I
Mm-hmm.
joke around a lot. Sometimes my jokes are not always the most, kind jokes. Like there's a lot of colorful language.
Hey, you know me. I've stuck my foot in my mouth a time or two.
Yeah, and obviously, like there's a. I'm not going to be doing that necessarily at church per se. Like I'm not going to be saying using that type of language, or using having those type of jokes at church. But like as far as just being that way, I feel like there's a lot of times where I kind of have this like where people look their nose down at me like, oh, you're not a you're not a real Christian kind of attitude. And it's in my mind, I'm like, it's not, I have to love you, but at the same time, it's like, you know what, go, kind of go fuck yourself a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of, it's it in that's obviously not the nicest thing to it's probably not the godly thing, but there's a lot of times where I really despise church at times, and I've definitely been at odds with church, and especially when it comes to the way that I teach the Bible, because I'm always encouraging people like, it's okay to ask questions about your faith. In fact, a majority of the people that we read about in the Bible, they were always questioning stuff. They were always wrestling with these things. If you look throughout the church history, all these famous authors and writers and thinkers, they were all wrestling with the Bible, and like they were in a sense, even in a sense, we're even challenging each other about like about these theological viewpoints and what they have to, how they deal with it, and so I share, it's like, so that means it's okay for you to do the same thing. God never asks us to follow Him blindly. He gives us a lot of evidence, and He gives us a lot to uh, to look at, and it's like, and it's not just like, believe me because I said so. It's, and when it comes to church leadership, in a lot of ways, I have found that I have um, been at, like, where I get looked down on, or it's like, yeah, don't. It's like, well, I don't really think that we should ask those questions or to think that way. It's like, why not? It's like, people are, it's, I think if we did this more, we wouldn't have like such the, because there's a lot of it's not everybody, but there is a significant lack of biblical knowledge within the church, and our faith, in a sense, it's under attack, for one, and it's like, but we don't have any knowledge of our faith, so it's gonna go into the fucking pit if we don't do anything, if we don't start challenging ourselves to study better and to think about these things more. But I'm just curious, like, do you ever like feel like maybe because of your viewpoints, or because you're not exactly you don't always necessarily have like the most sometimes you have flowery language on things that like you get looked down upon at church at all?
Hmm. So, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily, come, come at odds to any of the leadership at my church. Um, I do understand, like, sometimes when they get on you about language and how, uh, like the whole thing's like you can't, talk, like talking out, two sides of your mouth, or are restraining the tongue, or having discipline over your tongue, um, which is in the Bible. Um, but I look at I think we should all look to Jesus as the example. But Jesus wasn't always flowery. I mean, he didn't I don't know necessarily use our equivalent of curse words, but who's to say that because he when when the apostles constantly weren't getting what he was saying, they were he would say like, oh, you faith you like, what is it, you unbelieving generation, I believe is one of the
Yeah.
is one of the things he said. And I and I don't.
And in my mind, yeah, it's the equivalent of you fucking idiots.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, maybe the authors cleaned it up a little bit, but I mean, I think the sentiment is that you
Oh
know
man.
because even though Jesus is fully God, and he's fully man, he was living this life. He it's not like he didn't feel frustration, he didn't feel annoyance. you know he had to have felt and lived through the whole range of human emotions. Because if he's truly the God that is able to relate to us, then he has to know all of it, including annoyance, including frustration, including anger. I mean, he even demonstrates it so far as in the classic story of him chasing the money changers out with like the lash of cords. That was anger. It was righteous anger, and I think that we're all fully capable of experiencing righteous anger. So so yeah, look, I would look to the example of Jesus. And he would constantly be annoyed and frustrated by his followers, the closest people to him on the entire earth. And like when they would constantly not get things, or they fail to live up to a teaching or a standard. He used language, and I want to believe that I want to believe it was harsh, um, and maybe not the nicest things to say to emphasize his point.
Yeah, and I mean that's how I look at it too, and I don't know. It's just the thing is, like, I know that it's important that we go to church because the community is very important.
Right.
No, we can't be
No man's an
the lone
island.
wolf. Exactly. You can't be a lone wolf when it comes to Christianity. It's not biblical.
Right.
So you have to be with the church community. Um, my problem with church today is I don't necessarily feel like it's always like, because to me church is kind of like it's a sanctuary away from what you deal with in the world, because it should be a place where we gather together under a common unified goal, and that's to worship Christ and to be able to share our burdens with one another, to pray for one another, to talk about about God's word together. But in reality, and a lot of times, that's just not what's happening at all. Um, and I don't know. It just there's a lot of things about church in general, and it's not just like, and I'm not picking on like my church or anyone else's church. It's more of like I'm talking about like the church, overall in general.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is what happens a lot of time is, um, like I said, could I be a heck of a lot more disciplined? Definitely. Could I maybe not be as brash as I am? Sure, I get that, but I feel like that even though like because I think part of the problem is being kind of in this like middle place when it comes like where it's like I'm not of the world, but like I also kind of like don't feel like I'm part of the church either, because I can't became a Christian so much later.
Mm.
Is through all the study of the Bible that I have done, and extensively, where I look at things like, and I can recognize like that we can enjoy things in the world, because there's a lot of stuff that's in our world that's very neutral. It's how it's used is how is what makes it good or evil. I mean, you look at things like it's not money that's evil. Money is just a tool. But if you
Mm.
start loving money, that's where evil begins. Or same thing with sex. Sex within the bonds of marriage, that's a very good thing. But when you start using it in these horrible ways that we're seeing in our world, yeah, then it becomes evil.
Yeah. I mean,
um
chocolate cake.
yeah. Yeah. So in a lot of ways there are things that I enjoy in the world that are not that I feel are just they're very neutral, that I just enjoy because it's God has put them there to allow me to enjoy. But there's a lot of people in like in church world who've only grown up in church, only know about these things, and they it's like, ooh, it's icky. I don't like, obviously, like I'm drinking Coors beer right now. That in a lot of I would say in a lot of churches where, now I'm not going to be like cracking open a cold one at church, obviously in a worship center, but obviously because I know it would be it could bring division within the body.
Right. Or
But
stumble.
yeah, exactly. But I'm not. But when it comes to like my own life, like yeah, I'm gonna enjoy like a nice beer every once in a while. It's nice. It's
Mm-hmm.
something to be enjoyed sometimes. And you look at like biblically. hell, Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine, like, and it was one hell of a party apparently.
Right?
It's,
Yeah, like it lasted several days, I believe the count goes.
yeah, and so it's like
But
it's but it's like, yeah, what's the context? Like, yeah, am I when I drink, do I like, start to beat the shit out of like, the people that I care about and like lose control? Okay, maybe then like maybe that's not for me. Maybe I need to not do that. But like to enjoy like a couple of beers and just kind of like, honestly, like a lot of times when I do drink or have drinks with friends, a lot of times it turns into a great discussion. Like I've had so many great biblical discussions, over a couple of beers, and it just helps us. Like it honestly, it helps me like really like, man, like I really care um you know about this subject, and I want to like, and it just helps us to kind of relax and kind of really delve into the topic a lot. Um, so I don't know, like, and but for a lot of people in church, that's an icky thing. Like, and oh, can't delve into that, can't enjoy like certain things, because it's icky.
well, I mean, let me try to answer one of the things, one of the points that you brought up, specifically about wrestling with one's faith. I come, no surprise, but I come from, a Korean, a Christianity very heavily influenced by Korean culture.
As do I.
Well, okay, yes,
Even though
but
I.
you admittedly didn't grow up in it, where I did, and it, and I think and a lot of Korean culture is is hierarchical, so you don't challenge the person above you. And I think this is like doubly compounded at in a church setting. So we're told not to question authorities or higher ups. So so I mean, I remember one time when I was a kid, like I had to go, like during service, I had to go to the bathroom, and I like as as inconspicuously as I possibly could, get out of my seat, and I walked over to the teacher and I asked, "Could I use the bathroom?" I mean, kids nowadays. I mean, I see like in my at my church's youth group, I see kids like walking in and out all the time. Sometimes not even to use the restroom. Um, but that's a different story. And so so I would answer that question at least. Hell's yeah, absolutely. Question and wrestle with your faith. I think it would go a long way to improving, if nothing else, retention levels. Not necessarily like within a specific church, but just in terms of people remaining within Christianity, because it's not so it's no longer this thing that was imposed on you by your parents or an authority figure, but you did the legwork, you did the due diligence, and you worked it out within yourself, in your mind and in your own heart first, and then accept. So I'm fully on board, and I fully endorse the questioning of one's faith, especially if you're young.
Well, I think too. Well, and see, to me, it's almost, to me, it's a biblical mandate. In Peter's first epistle, he talks about like always be prepared to give an answer for why you have the hope that you have in Christ. And to me, that means you have to understand like why you believe in it. It can't be about like, it doesn't matter when people are asking you like why you're a Christian. They don't give a shit about like what your pastor thinks or what your particular church says about things.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking to you.
Right.
Why do you believe in it? And if you
Mm-hmm.
can't answer that,
So, because I
how
do.
can you ever, how can you effectively share the gospel? Um, and it's like because to me, it's not necessarily always spoken in words, but being different like from like the rest of everyone around you, and not necessarily in a bad way, but like in a good way, like where like if there's a lot of people who like are it's like it's a tough job, but you work harder than everyone else, and it's like, man, why do you work so hard? Boom, opportunity to share the gospel. It's like you've created an opportunity.
Right, but also,
But then
never underestimate the power of a personal story. Especially,
yeah,
if someone asks you, oh, like, why do you use that, I don't know, particular pen? Then you say, oh, I love this pen. I love how it writes, the feel of it, the motion of the ball, and like the ink dries really well. Someone who is enthusiastic about something, it shows and it makes other people excited about it. And also, if you have like if you can relate it personally, then all the more. I mean, I think I think that's what makes good salespeople. But and no one, because like no one wants to hear about a God who died for them. And when you tell it like you're trying to explain how glue works.
right. And like I said, I'm not saying like you're gonna like talk about all these like theological viewpoints, but understanding like why why do you believe that you're a Christian, for one
Mm,
thing. And I'm not saying that people that I'm talking about, like, that they're not Christian. I do believe that they are, but I don't think that they could explain why they
mm,
are, and that's a problem.
right. Right. Like, yeah, I mean, I would assume, like, they kind of fall more on, they're a little bit more legalistic.
Right. And it's like, and um and a lot of it is feelings based in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways. And I look at how I came to become a believer, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there was a little bit of faith, but to me there was a lot of logic in the gospel. To
Mm-hmm.
me, it was the only. It was the Christianity is the only religion that has uh, a response to uh, how like humanity, like, because humanity is completely fucked up.
Right.
It's one we're not good people at all. Because you look at and the reason I see that is because I say that is you look at like a lot of the dystopian type of like movies or shows that are out there. What is like, oh well, everyone descends into chaos and it becomes a very selfish and pretty fucked up society. It's not like some like, oh well, we're all going to care about each other, blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, it's not really the case.
Right. Yeah. I
So
mean,
you know,
yeah, like kind of
left to
like
the God.
in the it's funny because like in the book, in that movie, the Book of Eli, um, basically the Bible was blamed for all the wars that were happening, and so like they banned the book, they banned the Bible. And
Yep.
then in the dystopian wake of all the wars and things like that, here's a local despot essentially is craves the book, but not because he wants the truth of the book, but he wants to use it as a weapon to bring people. He basically wants to distort like the teachings of the Bible and use it for his own personal gain,
Yep.
right? And so damn it, I lost my train of thought. Um, lack of sleep, folks. Lack of sleep.
Yeah.
God, I know I had a point to this. Right, jumpstart my memory. What were we talking about previously?
So we were talking about how like
Oh,
well, I
dystopian
was talking about
futures.
how, yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. So just because you have the book doesn't necessarily make you good.
Right.
You know?
That's true.
So that's the point I was going to ultimately make.
And yes, I will agree that there are many people who have perverted the Bible and used it for a lot of evil. But that it's like that doesn't mean that the message itself is not a good one. Whereas they're I'm not going to delve into that topic, but I'm just saying there have been people who have I'm not going to bash another religion tonight. it's not, so
Yes,
I'll just say this, but there have been people who have used the Bible um for terrible gain. They've abused it. And but that's not the reality. But it's like I said, it's just that we're not good, and to me, Christianity is the only answer that really answers the problem of humanity. It's like, no, you're not good, but because
but
I'm
here's
God,
how you can be good.
I'm the one that created you, so I'm going to do all the work. I'm going to rescue you and justify you, and sacrifice myself for you so that you might be restored to what I initially created you to be.
Right.
And it's like, if like, and when I first heard the gospel, I was like, if God is real, that's him right there. That's it. And so I took that in faith. And the more that I've delved into the Bible, I've read it and I've studied it and I've read theology and history. And I even mentioned on when we were filming on this past Sunday, it's like the reason why I look at the the Bible, why what I love about the Bible, it's not just a bunch of myths and fantasies. Like, it is centered in history. We're constantly finding new archaeological discoveries that back up what's in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So these the people that we're reading about, these are real people in real time, and they're doing it's like we can find artifacts from when they lived. So it means like what they were doing is real. It's not made up. And so the more I've studied that and looked into this, and you see how everything starts to connect, it's like this is, to me, this is real. And the more I've wrestled with it, I've solidified my faith where it really is unshakable. There may come a time where I do die for my faith. If that's the case, like, I've been ready to go for 10 years. It's
Word.
But until that time comes, I'm going to be faithful to the Bible. Yeah, I might not be the necessarily like the Ned Flanders type of Christian, but that doesn't mean that I don't give a damn about the Bible or that my faith isn't real. But see, there's a lot of to me, there's a lot of Christians at church who would look at me. It's like, ugh, he's he's not a real Christian.
Yep. So,
I was just curious if you had ever kind of experienced that at church or not, or and and it's not even like, I'm not even saying this is just completely because we're both at a Korean church, which I've only been at a Korean church, but I see this at church in general. Like, this is a church-wide problem, unfortunately.
yeah, I mean, I understand because you kind of want to go to a church for the broken, but but then you realize that all churches are supposed to be for the broken. That's basically where they get fixed.
Yeah.
But I think a lot too many. I think a lot of the kind of problems that rear their ugly head is that that churches start to then become almost like hermetically sealed off from like their surroundings or like the world at large, and so you know then like that the mentality of like, oh, we're all perfect in here, and no chips or dings or cracks in us. But I think I think when you look for antiques, you're not looking for pristine. You are looking for those chips. You are looking for those cracks because they have character and they tell a story, a history. And
Right.
I think we should all think of ourselves as antiques. Even though Christ says, son of a bitch. Even though Christ says, we are to be new creations. Um,
We're in the
I,
lifelong we are that is the current reality, yet at the same time we are also becoming that too. So it's like this weird lifelong paradoxical struggle that we're always in as
mm-hmm,
Christians,
exactly.
which is it. Like I said, it's not clean and neat, and like we can't tie a nice little bow around it. It's just, like I said, it's always a constant struggle.
Mm-hmm,
That's why I'm always wrestling with this shit.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I like it. But at the same time, like this is the stuff that wakes me up at night, that excites me. I love it.
Excellent.
But anyways, all right, Andy, you bring us into the next topic. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Okay. Okay. So this past Sunday, when me and Robert and our guest were recording, at the end, we were just kind of shooting the shit a bit, and I don't know how it came up. When Robert gets back, I'll ask him. But the topic of of dream girls basically came up, and and then I posed a question because I have been actually thinking about this um, for a little bit, and I asked them if they knew who were. I asked Robert and our guest if they knew who were the new like dream girls, it girls, for this generation, because I would ask my nephews and young men that I know, about like, oh well, who do you find attractive, or who's the hot babe, going right now, and they would never really get an answer. Particularly, I can maybe understand my nephews because I'm their uncle, so maybe they're a little uncomfortable with to talk. They're a little bit uncomfortable talking about that kind of thing with me, and so yeah, so the three of us, we were racking our brains, and we honestly couldn't think of anybody. Um, which it might
Yeah,
be different because you know, like for us, our parents might have been like at least slightly aware, of who are the hot young things, during our time, and maybe I just maybe we just need to have kids, and then we'll have all the answers, but I mean, because Robert, he works with kids at church, I have my nephews and various young people that I interact with at church. Um, and even our guest, he works with kids as well. So, but we couldn't think of it. We couldn't come up with an answer.
do you think that the issue, like why we can't think of it, is because we don't see them as sex symbols? Maybe like
Maybe because that that might be a possible answer, because I remember one time I was flipping through the channel, and then E came on, and they were talking about Selena Gomez in a two piece. And I have a very specific image in my mind when I think of Selena Gomez. Not not that she's not an attractive young woman, but I just think of the very young Selena Gomez that was on Disney
Right.
Channel, and before that Barney.
All right.
And so when they showed the picture of of her in her bikini, I was just like, why are you showing this child in her bikini?
Yeah, like because I mentioned a few who I thought maybe are the quote unquote current day sex symbols, but I don't really think of them that way.
Right. It's kind of the same way that I see young women who I knew back when they were very young, like in elementary school and things like that. Now they're grown up, and I'm just like, it's like you're still a child to me. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, you have become a very lovely young woman, but I still see you as that little 7-year-old.
right. Yeah, it's because I can name like the sex symbols for us, who
Right. I
I
mean,
think are
yeah.
just like, ooh,
Yeah, I can count
yeah,
on all your. I could count all your fingers and all your toes. And I can, name. I can name that many
easy.
easily.
Um, I mean, I guess like if I was gonna say like who the current day sex symbols for like young kids are,
Hmm.
or for like boys, teenage boys. I mean, I guess you could probably put in like Ariana Grande as one,
Hmm.
maybe Kylie Jenner.
Right.
Um, I throw out potentially Cardi B.
Potentially.
Um, I don't see it. I think she's bleh. Yes.
I don't know.
I
Different
look at
tastes.
her face is like it's not attractive at all.
I mean, it's not ugly, but it's I mean, I find her I find her to be cute in face
Oh,
wise.
I don't I just don't
Um.
see it. I think she's an uggo.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, that's your opinion. You're welcome to it.
It, yeah, like I said, it's probably a minority opinion, but I think she's an uggo.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
mean.
kind of like I outside of that though, like maybe because I don't really okay, maybe like because I don't necessarily know all their names, but I mean I'm pretty sure like there's some of like the K-pop stars and stuff like that are pretty hot,
Right.
that are younger. I
Okay.
know there's a few that like are closer to like our age that I think are like super very attractive,
Hmm.
that I like, but
Yeah. I think it's funny because I past a certain time, let's say 2005, I really stopped relating to like at least the men, the K-pop, boy bands and stuff. I was like, I couldn't relate.
like the ones that like I would like the guys that I think are still actually pretty decent singers. Like, yeah, they're all like closer to like our age, now.
Mm,
So it's
yeah.
like but they're still good singers. So I was like, all
Right.
right,
Right.
I
Right.
don't
Right.
mind listening to them.
Yeah. But I think I'm just in terms of like aesthetic because like I don't know why,
They're
but
too
like yeah, like the Korean male pop stars,
they're kind of faggy.
they're
I'm
kind of
sorry.
baggy. Right? If you put on a wig on them, they make really hot. They make really hot girls.
Yeah. Oh god,
And
it's gross.
and again, that just might be a cultural thing, but it's like I can't get down with that. I mean,
Um,
don't get me wrong. Some of them they put out some like pretty catchy songs, but
right.
like I don't know how women find that attractive.
yeah, when they're like prettier than them,
Yeah.
that's a problem. When the woman is the uggo of the of the relationship, like that's a problem.
Oh, this might be the first time that you're the one saying the insensitive thing, and I'm the one kind of gobsmacked.
But it is. Think about it.
I know.
Why would?
I'm not disagreeing
Why
with.
should the?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just pointing out the irony.
I have unpopular opinions too, Andy.
I know, but this is like maybe one of the first times on this show that you are presenting the the kind of unabashed, raw, like truth, and I'm the one here like, oh my god, I can't believe he's saying that. When it's usually the other way around.
It's backwards day, Andy. It's backwards day.
I know, it's backwards day. I know, we're
Those
on
guys are
time and
fags,
everything
and they
today
should not be in
too.
and they're prettier than girls. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the K-pop guys. They like have endorsement deals with cosmetic brands.
That's a fag. And I'm not talking about homosexuality.
Right.
They're fags.
Yeah, they're just fags.
They're a British cigarette, goddammit.
Yeah, right. They're a burdensome bundle of sticks. Oh. Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah. I mean, I remember asking my nephew one time, it's like, oh, like, who do you find attractive? And he's like, well, everyone, all the girls look so fake and they look the same, so like nobody. I was like, huh.
What?
Well, I mean, to a certain point, I do understand that because especially nowadays with like YouTube and stuff and um, makeup tutorials, and if girls are watching like say like a really popular beauty YouTuber, then they're all doing the makeup the same way. So in essence, they all are kind of looking alike.
Do you think? Okay, well, I could see that that's the point. Like, did you ever ask like your nephew, like, what do you find attractive? And do you think it maybe like part of it is like he hasn't discovered what he's found attractive yet, or like because obviously he has like things that he does looking, so obviously he doesn't like that look. But has he ever like found something that he does like find attractive?
Not that he's confided in me.
I see. I see.
Yeah. I mean, he might be a horn dog, but he doesn't show it to me. And I
Maybe
used to
he's
play Star
desiring to
Wars with
become
him.
pretty. Yeah, maybe he's desiring to become the pretty one in the relationship. Who knows?
No, well, no. But he does love like like really expensive brands.
What, like Louis Vuitton and
Yeah, but it's funny. Like he can't like afford it, but then like when his mom gets like a new Louis bag or something, like the kind of dust jacket bag that it comes with, he takes it and he uses it like a backpack.
oh god.
Yeah, so he's more about the brand name than like actually having the thing. I don't know if that's all kids, but they rather like instead of like because maybe like they can't like they can't afford it now. So even getting like the thing associated with that brand, like if it has like the brand's name on it, that they'll like latch
I,
onto.
I guess I can see that a little bit because I mean there's stuff that when I was a kid it's like yeah I can't afford that now but like I still like it. I guess but my like things that I like it was more like car related. I
Mm.
love like I love the Camaro and the Corvette and um like the Porsche 911 and stuff like that. It's like obviously I'm probably never gonna own like a Porsche or anything, but like I bought like the cars and the posters and all that stuff, and just because I thought they looked cool. So I mean maybe not because I don't necessarily care about fashion, but I guess I could see like where that's why people would do that.
Mm.
I think it's a little weird for guys to be in fashion quite like that, but um, Yeah, I mean, I guess I understand it because I mean, there is like some sort of like guy fashion. I know there's guys that are into like watches or,
Right.
um, like certain suits and whatnot. So I guess I can see it. That's not a terrible thing, I guess.
Hmm.
I just when I think of like Louis Vuitton and like all those, it's like I just because to me like my mind goes straight to like that's a woman thing. It's not a guy thing.
Right. Right. Right.
Because I think of like the Louis Vuitton purses and stuff, but I guess they
Right,
do
or
like a bunch
wallets,
of other
like, but
stuff.
for women, yeah. 'Cause, I mean, my sister just got
Right.
a Louis wallet, and it costs like $700.
Oh my god. What in the That is a waste of fucking money.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't never. Yeah, I don't know. Like when. Like I don't know if she'll ever even have that much cash on her at one time to be, be putting into that wallet. But I think the
The thing
lifetime
is,
of
but
lifetime
maybe
of
not
that
to say
wallet, she will have $200 in the wallet, or 700. She'll have $700 in the wallet. You know, the the length of time that she uses it.
yeah.
But I mean,
Um,
also, but then also, like sometimes, expensive does mean quality stuff, which does mean long lasting. So there is a
True.
component to
Like I
that.
said, I like I said, I understand buying like the brand name stuff, like, and obviously like certain brands like you're known for, like, yeah, they're expensive, but you're not gonna have to buy another one in like 2 years. Like it's gonna last you, some 20 odd years or
Hmm.
something, like just because it's so well made.
Right.
So I'm definitely I'm all for that because I know, like, if you're buying like a wallet or a pair of shoes like every, like, 3 or 4 months, like, well, eventually you're gonna end up spending the same amount that you would have if you just, like, thrown the money in to buy like the better pair or like the better item,
Hmm.
off the bat.
Right.
Um, and so, like I said, I'm all for, like, buying, like, what's the best quality, even if you have to spend a little bit more money, which in the end, actually, you'll actually save more money because you're not gonna have to buy a new one every,
Right.
few months.
Okay. Right. But real quickly, like you never ask your like students, like who they who like the kind of the starlets now that they find attractive.
It has never really come up, um, as far as like that goes.
Hmm.
I would assume based off of just like conversations we had that like they're more into, I know like some of them are into like K-pop stars and stuff, so that's kind of like why I threw that out there. Um, but yeah, like I don't think I've ever really had a conversation about that stuff with them. Maybe just because, like, yeah, I mean, I'm not like, I'm not like their dad or anything like that, or I'm not trying to like sexualize them.
Right.
I'm more like their older brother, but yeah, it's just, I guess it's just never really come up, or I've never really like thought to ask that, of them.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's funny because you look at like when we were growing up, we would talk to our friends like, oh man, so and so is like, kind of hot, or you talk to your friends about like who you thought was good looking, or you'd have like your celebrity crushes and you talk about them. Like
Hmm.
I don't see that at all anymore. Like no one's, yeah. Maybe they are on the internet, like in these like chat rooms that like we're not
Well, right.
privy
That
to.
was the other thing that I did bring up because media has become very fractured, and like the popularity of YouTube, they're they the kids might be into some hot YouTuber, or an Instagram model. So we're completely
And I
taken.
would
We're
go,
so it's like so
yeah,
it's like we're it's not that we're removed generationally, but we're also removed technologically.
yeah, that's definitely true because I couldn't tell you who the fuck, like, the hot Instagram models are. I mean, I've seen a few where it's like, oh goddamn, like
Yeah.
like there's one that like for some, like, I don't know how, like, it came to this. Like, one of my friends, like, I guess, like, was, looking into this. He's kind of like, my friend Brandon, who we had on the podcast. He's kind of that same type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, dude, have you checked out this chick yet? And I guess she was like some cosplayer or whatever. I was like, no. It's like, isn't she hot? And I was like, yeah, yeah. It's like, and I was like, well, if I looked into it, it's like, yeah, like I was looking at like some of the costumes and shit that she does. Like, god damn. And like she's on Twitter and she's always like posting up like her like different like pictures and weird shit like that. It's like like this is kind of like softcore like porn shit.
Right. Yeah, definitely spank bank material.
Yeah, definitely. But it's like but outside of like stuff like that, like if like my friends like don't like share like stuff with me, it's like I don't know, because I'm not on Instagram all the time, like actually hardly ever.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I use Instagram is when we're communicating through Instagram.
Right.
Or if like I'm sharing stuff like about the podcast from Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I use Twitter more often, but my Twitter feed is mainly like gaming, like NASCAR, and some politics stuff, and that's
right. Yeah. Well, I guess then that's kind of
podcast.
Yeah. Well, I guess Instagram is kind of my domain. Being a photographer and everything. Yeah, I follow some really hot Instagram models. Actually, one got this is a few years back, but this one Instagram model, she got some flack because she was pregnant and she barely showed.
So
yeah, exactly. That was exactly my reaction. It's like, yes, like here's this woman, here's this very attractive woman, and yes, she's pregnant, but she doesn't show it. So what? You're saying that all women have to let that because from what I understand, like she kept with like her workout regimen and while pregnant and stuff. And it also just might be like a genetic like anomaly kind of thing, but like yeah, her baby bump was very slight to the point where like you just think to the point where you just think that she ate like a really big burrito.
It's like it's like that's where I like I look. It's like all these women like talk about how like men like hate on like how women look. It's like, no, it's not us. It's women who hate on women.
Exactly. Thank you for saying it.
They are the most vicious fucking creatures on the planet. Like honestly, like when I look at like you and me, it's like, yeah, she's sexy. It's like even though like she might not have like she might be a little curvy or whatever. It's like, yeah, she's hot.
I mean, look at your evaluation of Cardi B. That was pretty mild.
Like I don't like her face. Her face is too like for me. But I'm not. But at the same time, I know why people like looking at her. She like I can see. I see it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. See, look how mild that was. Look how mild that was. But you see, like the comments, for some of these, Insta models, and it's like, oh, you fucking slut.
Attractive doesn't mean I want her dead. It's like.
Or yeah, like it's not men who are slut shaming. It's women who slut shame. Are you kidding me?
And the other thing about Cardi B is because I don't like her as a person, so that makes her ugly to me.
Oh yeah.
Because there have been plenty of people who are between like kind of the 8 and 10 range that are like pretty good looking, but they have shitty personalities, and it's like for me like that cuts into the score.
It does, and it's funny because like men are called like superficial or whatever, but if you make yourself look ugly, personality wise, oh my god, like how crazy it affects men's like perception of you. You could be like a smoking hot 10, but if you're like this, like this nasty person, who's like a total cunt to everybody, then dude, you're like a 2.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been plenty of like people who I've are probably like realistically maybe like a 6 or 7, which isn't bad. But like because they're such kind, gentle, warm people. Boom! That's like another 2 points on the
Yeah, that's an
scale for
instant
you.
8 right there. That's an instant 8.
Yeah, exactly. Like the person that like I'm dating right now, like yeah, she's probably like I would say
Hey,
like 2. I
do
mean,
you want to finish that? You knowing that she might be watching.
I know she's watching. I think she's probably like realistically like a 7.5, which is well above average, but because of her personality and who she is, like to me, like that's a 9. Like I'm the loser. I'm lucky to be in that relationship.
Whatever,
Because
Robert.
I'm
It
kind of
didn't
like
shoot her to a
4.
10. It didn't shoot her to a 10.
9.5 is pretty fucking good. Like,
There's no 10.
but she's a 12 in my heart. So there we go.
Good save. Good save.
I wouldn't want to be with anybody else. I'll just say that.
Okay. Better save. Better save.
But yeah, but like I said, like I'm saying that there's been, but yeah, you have a shitty personality, like it cuts into the score.
Yeah.
Like there's like for example, you look at like there's been plenty of celebrities that I found you used to find attractive, and then they went all crazy, bitchy feministy on us, and like they went real ugly. Like you look at um shit the singer what the hell is her name? God, I feel
Wait,
so
recent or
dumb.
older singer?
Recent singer, or a fairly recent singer. The one with the giant rack.
The one with the giant rack.
Who semi-exposed her, all her cleavage across Sesame Street.
Oh, Katy Perry.
Thank you. Yeah. So there's Katy Perry, who used to be like super hot. She
Right.
has
Oh
gone.
man, she was a smoke show.
Oh God, she was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then yeah, she went a little bit crazy. Then
Right.
you
She got the
have
boycott and killed everything feminine about her.
oh yeah, it was awful.
Yeah, so bad. Oh.
Ashley Judd was another one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like the whole like women's march and like that really bad reading of that poem or whatever.
Oh,
Choose. Oh,
yeah, but she used to be like super hot too.
yeah.
ScarJo like needs long hair because when she cut her hair
Yeah, I
short,
mean, yeah, when she
she
did
looked
that
terrible.
boycott, no, thank you.
Now I will admit that there are some women who do like the short hair and they look pretty good, where they can pull off long hair and short hair, but it's a
Yes,
very
it's
rare.
very rare. He's a very special kind of woman to pull both those uh, hairstyles off. Well,
Yeah,
but
but I said there are a few that can do it.
yeah, but just Scarlett Johansson's not one of them.
No, God, she needs long hair. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah. Just it frames the face. It frames the face.
I think that's what has a lot. It's the shape of the face.
Mm,
I think that really is like what does it.
yeah.
All right. Well, I know you also like was on Sunday. You also asked about like if I was like a tits or an ass guy.
Right.
I I still like I don't know, man. Like it's
Although, for just clarification, I asked this because of what I have observed as the phenomenon from back when me and Robert were coming up. It was really all about the boobs. But then
Yeah, I would agree with that.
somewhere
It
in the
definitely was.
late '90s to early 2000s, there was a switch, and I do
I know where the
credit
switch
Kim
occurred.
Kardashian with that.
I would say no. I would say it was Pamela Anderson, and then we all went Jennifer Lopez. That was the switch.
Oh, actually, you're right. Yes, but you're right. I stand corrected. Yes. So yeah, because it was like all about the boobs for us, at least in the '90s, and then
Bigger is better.
towards the end of the century, it shifted to butts, and you're right. It was Jennifer Lopez first.
Yep.
Yeah, but then I think,
Um.
Kim Kardashian took that and ran with it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I am more of like, I would rather have it like where it's everything is evenly proportioned. Maybe
Right.
because I'm like kind of an OCD guy and like I kind of like good proportions.
Right. So you're more the classic hourglass.
Yeah, I would say that's
Yeah. And I mean, I would say the same thing. I think all men are. I mean, we're all looking for that, that golden ratio to hips to
but
waist, or
then again, I'm
hips to
also a
bust.
guy, and if there is a attractive woman who isn't necessarily like quote unquote perfect, magazine perfect, is they think that every guy that's all they want is like it's like you have boobs, we don't have them, we love them. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, like much the same. Like like we have penises, you don't. You love them for women.
Yeah, and it's like okay, whatever. I don't care if like one boob is kind of sort of lops, like a little bit like bigger than the other. Like it's who cares? Like you're putting them in my face. Like I love them. Yes.
What if they were uh a windsock?
I'm not looking for carnival like this. Like
No, but I'm
carnival
just
boobs.
saying. Like I'm just saying. Like what if there's a woman who's beautiful, who had a great personality, but then her Iraq situation was like because there are a lot of ways to hide it. But when the time came,
True.
it was like again like a windsock. It was like
Now see that's that. So here's where I like where I like. That's why I tend to like somewhat like more in like the like B range when it comes to like breast size, like like somewhere in the A to B size. Because I tend to date like women who are like semi short because
mm-hmm,
I'm average height, so I don't want to date like a giant, right?
right.
So like a lot of the girls I've dated are like around like 4'11" to 5'5".
Mm,
5.
yeah. But like
Um,
I said on Sunday, I do love the challenge of taking down a giraffe.
well, you are the freak among us, Andy. So obviously, like, so in that size of woman, I don't necessarily want a size D boob. It's
Mhm.
weird. So I think like with like the size like a A to B range is kind of
Mhm.
like perfect because they tend to like retain their shape.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
okay. Yeah. For
so
me,
I guess in that sense, like, because a lot of those girls tend to have like more of like a butt. So maybe I am more of a butt guy. I don't know.
maybe. Yeah. Maybe you just think you think you are more of a boob man, but you're really an ass guy.
Maybe I am. I don't know.
Maybe you are. Yeah. As for me, I guess my ideal uh, breast size would be C's, but again, proportional C's. So like someone who's like 5'2" to 5'5". I think like that height with like a nice set of C's. Perfect.
Although I'm anti fake tit, and I cannot I don't like pepperoni nipples. Oh,
I don't know,
ugh.
but sometimes fake titties, do feel nice.
I just
I mean,
I don't know.
I wouldn't necessarily use them, for pillows, but
As I've coined the phrase, like I don't need Nazi nipples.
Oh yeah, the Nazi nipples.
They're always standing
Yeah,
at
but I don't know.
attention.
I'm starting to slow. I'm starting to incorporate. A little bit more tush. In my selection, or at least when I'm more inclined to appreciate. If someone has a nice little caboose or
Well, this has definitely been
sizable
a very
caboose.
highbrow conversation, by the way.
Was it?
This has been a very highbrow conversation.
I know, right? Yeah, I enjoy. I enjoy a little extra in the caboose area.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I do like a nice butt. Like, I don't want like some flat ass, because that's kind of disgusting.
Right.
And I don't necessarily want someone that's super flat chested, that's like flatter than mine.
Right.
Um, and I think well, I mean, the person I'm dating now, I think I've kind of hit the jackpot, and it's kind of it's got the curves in the right places, and definitely has a very beautiful face.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy. I'm good.
Okay.
Since all right, so before we move on to our movie review, I'm gonna ask you because I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Who are your celebrity crushes? Either growing up or currently or whatever. Who are
Mm.
your the ones that you're like, whoo, I like.
Okay.
Are,
Well. Okay. Kind of like Eric. You have to ask me during what time period of my life.
do you have
Because
a whole do you have a whole list?
I mean, if yeah, I think you have to talk decades. Like, which decade are you talking about?
Okay, I'm gonna say at, at the particular celebrity's prime. So it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm not necessarily asking your I'm not necessarily saying current day who you think is your celebrity crush, but throughout your life, who have been your celebrity crushes?
Okay. Cindy Crawford, Selma Hayek,
Okay.
um, um, Tyra Banks before I found out she was a bitch.
Yeah, I remember you told me that
Yeah, and I have a personal story. I have. It's not just because I think she is. I know she is. Um,
God, she was pretty hot, way back in the day.
right?
Remember when she was on
It's
Fresh
funny.
Prince?
They're always hotter when they're not talking so much.
Yeah, when she was on Fresh Prince, she was hot.
Right? Yeah. When she had that bit character that she would do. Yeah,
Yeah, she was kind
super
of
hot.
tomboyish in that show too. It was great.
Right?
She
Yeah.
so made her
She's like the
entrance.
only one to be able to keep up with Will Smith.
Yeah,
Um, hmm. Hmm. I mean, Scarlett Johansson before she went all feminist. Uh,
yeah.
Right, Jessica Alba. This is before I knew
Oh,
she had
she's
herpes.
still hot. I'm sorry, she's still super hot.
Huh?
She's still super hot. Have you seen her recently?
Yeah, she still looks really good, but she
Oh
got the
God,
herp though. She got the herp though.
really?
Yeah,
I don't
it's been
care.
it's been confirmed.
I don't care. She's still oof.
Yeah, no, she's still really hot. I know there are more, but it's just kind of hard to think about them.
All right, so I can. Mine
Probably like
is kind
half.
of
Well, also probably half the cast of Baywatch.
can't go wrong there.
Well,
So mine is kind of an eclectic, group.
like mine
So,
wasn't.
well, yours was too. I think you're gonna be like you're gonna look at me as like what in the hell. Um, so
It's gonna be one of those like, who are you?
so I would say like Lucy Lawless is definitely on in that group.
Okay. I'm talking about
For
Prime
those
Lucy
who don't
Laws,
know
right?
who I'm talking about, that's Xena, Warrior Princess, by the way. Um, for those of you our age,
Right.
um, Elizabeth Hurley was definitely in that group. I think she's still,
Okay.
even when she was older, she's pretty hot. Um,
Yeah, she still looks pretty good.
I think she still looks pretty good. Crap. Well, yeah, I would agree. Like ScarJo before her kind of like super feminist leanings.
Hmm.
Um, oh shit. Um, Heather Locklear was definitely
Oh,
in
another
there.
good one. Yeah.
Oof.
Wait.
Jessica.
Well, doesn't really matter, but Melrose Place days or what was that show with Michael J. Fox?
Spin City.
Spin City. Yeah.
She was still hot in Spin City. Yeah,
True.
it's like I'd do her. Yeah, I'd do her. Um, let's see.
Oh, if I can add one really quick one, then for me, Denise Richards.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Like Wild Thing, Starship Troopers, Denise Richards.
Yes.
Oh,
Absolutely.
God.
Right.
God,
And
she
when
was
we
hot
did
in
when we
Wild
did
Things.
Wild Things, like yeah, like that scene, I was like,
Hold on.
oh, all the right. It still hits all the
That
good
was
notes.
that was ideal, Denise Richards.
Yeah.
Because now she like after her whole like the Charlie Sheen era, she
Hmm.
kind of went like kind of.
Yeah.
I would also say Jessica Alba. She's definitely in there.
Hmm.
And you're okay. You're probably gonna laugh at me for this one. But I one of my celebrity crushes is definitely Zoe Deschanel.
She's cute. Yes, I understand. I get it.
Yeah,
But do you
I
know
don't
do
I
you know
don't
the
know what
recent
it is
stuff?
about her, but like I think she's like just incredibly like beautiful.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Like what is it? Like her and Katy Perry like were being confused for like siblings or or like they were doppelgangers or something.
I can see that. Like it's Zoe Deschanel doesn't have quite the rack of
Yeah.
of
No, but in terms of like face, they look very similar, especially when both of them have like the raven, black hair.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like because one of my favorite comedies, although it's not like the one of the great comedies of all time, but it's one of my favorite comedies.
Hmm.
I like Yes Man, and like because she was
Hmm.
in Yes Man along with Jim Carrey, and
Right.
it was such a I don't know, it worked for me. The movie worked. I was very surprised, and I thought the movie was great.
Okay.
We'll have to do a review of it at some point.
Right. Okay.
But
Yeah. No,
yeah, like
I totally get it. I totally understand. Although I don't know if you're aware of of Miss Deschanel's recent admissions, but
don't want to think about. I'm just gonna like.
I know that's
Not
why
even.
I didn't flat out say it. I wanted to like, do you want to still hold on to like this image of her, or do you want to make or do you want me to ugify her?
No, I'm just. We're just gonna leave that alone. That's gonna be in the closet because it's not like it's ever gonna happen. So it's over there.
Okay. All right. See, ladies, you guys, you think we're shallow, but a woman's character does have an effect on us.
Yeah, because I kind of I want to hold on to that crush. It's like it's at a distance, and I'm gonna leave it there, and I'm not gonna think about her whatever disgusting views she has on life.
Okay. All right. I'm not okay. I'm gonna be a good homie, and I'm not gonna burst your bubble.
Right, like I said, it's just don't want to think
All
about
right.
it.
Just let you live with the fantasy. I got you.
Exactly.
I got you.
But yeah, like I guess those those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. I didn't really like do a extensive like list.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure if
I'm
I
sure
did,
I'm
I
missing a
still
few
wouldn't
off my list
remember.
as well.
Who if you could name like some classic hotties like from like the golden age of Hollywood, you have any that you can think of that you think are
Oh
pretty
yeah.
like
Oh yeah. Rita Hayworth, Ava Gardner, Jane Mansfield.
yeah.
Who's that one chick?
You know who was really hot back in the day?
Hmm.
Liz Taylor.
Oh hells yeah.
She was fucking.
Lizzie Taylor's.
She was a knockout.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit!
So yeah. So hot. Jesus.
I see why she was married 8 times.
Yeah. My God. Yeah. She was so beautiful.
Oof.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I was there was like a movie that we were doing and like I was just doing it's like I didn't know like Liz Taylor was connected to this actor. It's like I looked up like they had like a bunch of these old pictures of her. It's like holy crap! I didn't realize she was so hot.
Mm. Mm-hmm. All right, Grace Kelly.
Oh yeah,
You know, a lot of the Graces, a lot of the girls, Korean girls named Grace, are named after Grace Kelly.
yeah. I had heard about that.
Yeah, because like it's funny because like people think it's a religious thing, but it's really
It's
influenced from
not.
Grace Kelly.
Yeah. Well, Grace Kelly was a fantastic actress.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it's like a lot of like her movies were. Oh man, they were great, and it didn't hurt that she was a freaking knockout.
Mm, mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Janet Russell.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like some of the other ones that I'm pretty sure people will mention. Um, obviously, like Marilyn Monroe or like
Mm-hmm.
Audrey Hepburn and stuff like
Right.
that. And I mean, there are like certain like pictures of like Marilyn Monroe. Yeah, she was definitely like attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Audrey Hepburn was like kind of like more of the more of the I guess maybe sophisticated kind of
I don't know. For
kind
me,
of
she was
look.
more of like the playful, innocent kind of beautiful.
Yeah, like I
There was
wouldn't
like
have thought.
this kind of refreshing. Oh, I mean, not that she was, but like this almost like this refreshing like naivete feeling about. Not that she
Yeah,
was
yeah,
naive, but just like that sense that you got.
but she always kind of like had that like kind of like look to her, and always kind of like the characters that she played had that kind of that was the character she always kind of played
Right,
too.
right, like the kind of the ingenue. Yeah,
Yeah. Oof.
yeah. Yeah, I'm actually like a lot of my best work has been kind of like doing like in terms of photography wise, um, has been doing kind of the throwbacks and doing the old, like the golden Hollywood kind of portrait. If you go
Oh
to
yeah, that's a good look.
yeah, if you guys go to my website, andrewthephotog.com, and look under old
Shameless plug.
school, although yeah,
Yeah.
little plug, little plug. Yeah, but if you guys go to my photography website, andrewthephotog.com, um, and go under the old school tab, you can see all of the you know old Hollywood, golden era Hollywood inspired portraits that I did. Um, yeah, and that's actually my favorite type of shoot to do. I don't know why, but there was such an elegance and a you know a real deep appreciation of of just beauty. I don't know that I mean that's the sense that I get when I look at the old like headshots and portraits from starlets and actors from back then. It's just like they really appreciated beauty and like the like the masculine and the feminine and like they weren't it was just they weren't saying that one was better than the other. They were just appreciating it for what it was and accentuating just the best qualities of either sex.
Yeah,
You know.
those headshots and photos from back in like that golden age of Hollywood,
Hmm.
man, they like guys and girls both like they just looked, they had a lot of
Yeah,
power behind them.
a lot of power, a lot of presence. Like if a man was going out for a gangster role, then you felt like he could be that gangster, or he can be that hero that saves the farm or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. All right.
All right.
Yeah. That
That was
all being
like
said,
I'm kind of glad we got into that topic because I've always we needed some more fun topics. We've been going down
I
some
know
serious lane.
we've been going on a bit of a downer bender. You know, I mean, not that they're not important topics to talk about, but it's just like like darkness all the time.
Yeah,
It's
I needed this lift up. Like I feel a lot better.
right. Yeah. Well, we are. Let's finish it off. On a good one, and with our
Let's
movie
do it.
review. And this week we watched the animated movie Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Um, a lot of you may not have heard of this one, but it came out in the mid '90s, about the time when Batman the Animated Series came out, and that cartoon borrowed a lot of its aesthetic, like the Art Deco, from the Tim Burton Batman, and a lot of like the score and the theme music as well. But this is a story, about Batman. But a new masked individual appears, and kind of taking on the motif of Batman, but going the full 9 yards, as it were, and actually killing people, actually killing like mob bosses in this case. And so, essentially, Batman's being framed for murdering these mob bosses, and this story is also a bit of an origin story for Batman, and it goes, it tells like his. It kind of, I think, this movie precedes the comic book that came out, which was titled Batman Year One.
This movie obviously it flashes back to his early like his start off even before he was the Batman.
Mm-hmm.
But like yeah, this is very early on in his tenure as Batman.
Right, and so um, it shows him going out like pre-costume, and trying to make trying to fight crime and like succeeding, but not in the way that he would want to. Um, it also introduces it goes into a bit of Bruce Wayne's past and a particular love interest by the name of Andrea Beaumont. And she was basically the love of his life, and they were set to get married and everything, but she kind of leaves him at the altar in a sense. I mean, they never got to the altar part, but he does propose, and she does accept, but something happens where she has to decline, and she gives back the ring. But like kind of like in almost the 21st century way, she doesn't go and give it to him face to face. She kind of mails it back to him. Um,
Heartbreaking.
yeah, heartbreaking. This movie, I'm I'm not gonna lie, I love this movie. It was great.
It was fantastic.
It's everything that you want a Batman story to be. You want, especially because it was like one of the first times I think Warner Animation decided to put out a feature length movie, a feature length animated movie in the Batman verse, as it were. Um, and I think they definitely hit it out of the park. Just in terms of like they actually treated it like it was like a live action movie with some of like the camera shots and the angles and some of the transitions. I thought it was like it almost felt like you're watching a live action movie.
Yeah, and I'll say this about the film, because for I think any Batman fan who grew up in the '90s, Kevin Conroy is our Batman.
Oh
The
yeah,
guy who voice
absolutely.
acted this Batman. He is. I mean, the live action Batman that I like the most is Christian Bale from the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy.
Hmm.
But as far as like anything else, Kevin
Yeah, in
Conroy is
terms
my
of
Batman.
being the voice of Batman, that is Kevin Conroy all the way.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
he is my Batman.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
when I
what about
read, when sometimes when I happen upon a Batman comic book, the voice that I hear when I read Batman is Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and what I for those of you who have watched Batman the animated series, Batman is a very he's a very like tough, dark character. And he's uh to a fault sometimes where he has a lot of like darkness in his heart. He's a very controlling person, and he has a lot of just like hardness, and it does alienate the people that are supposedly close to him. So Robin, Batwoman, Batgirl, Alfred,
Mm-hmm.
any sort of potential person that gets close to him, there
Mm-hmm.
is this hardness that he can't get rid of.
Right.
And what I liked about this movie, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, because it's early on in his career, and you still, even from the way that Kevin Conroy portrayed the voice of Batman in this film, you can tell there's a lot more of a lightness to him, and he hasn't developed that hard heart, darkness to the Batman, to the Bruce Wayne or Batman, um, you know, uh, side of him, and you start to see the breakdown of his just kind of giving into that Batman persona.
Well, yeah, I think that was one of the great things about this movie because it presented uh, Bruce Wayne with a struggle in the form of Andrea Beaumont. Um, because he was well on his way to becoming Batman, and he made the vow to his parents, and there was even that scene where he was like so torn because you know because he met Andrea Beaumont, and he even said like, oh, it's not that I don't want to fulfill my vow, but when I'm with her, there's like it doesn't hurt as bad.
Right.
And like he was trying to he was trying to come up with all these different solutions, like, oh, I can always give more money to the police and so they can hire more cops. And but I think because he was wrestling with that so hard that it just made for even a better story. And like and I think because because the character Andrea loved Bruce so much that she could tell that there was like this struggle that he was going through. And when he was like in the rain at his parents' graveside and like saying, like, telling me it's okay that I don't have to fulfill my vow and things like that. And Andrea shows up and says, it's like, what if they already did say that it was okay, but because I showed up. And then it was like one of those kind of like, it was almost like a relief to him, because for him to have that out. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
he's like, well, maybe you're right. And so like and that's like what preceded Bruce to asking Andrea to marry him. And I love that scene. It was so great. Because
Yeah.
it humanizes Bruce Wayne, and then you understand like the the commitment that that Batman has. That scene highlights both those characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is one of those movies, like, obviously it came out like somewhere in the middle of when Batman the Animated Series was coming out, but
Mm-hmm.
it definitely for fans who maybe not necessarily like have read a lot of the comics but were into like the animated series or like a lot of the shows. It does give you like a little bit of an idea into the origins of everything, and you start to see you see like the that it is a struggle, and you start to understand the show, the animated series, better, because you see like why he struggles so much with any sort of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it if this is semi canon to the animated series, this is one of the main reasons why.
Right, because because he opens himself up, and to this woman that he loves and obviously loves him, but then it all to be dashed upon the rocks, as it were. It just it was just one more nail in the box that he would eventually surround his heart with. And it's interesting because even like in the beginning, of the movie, there's like a scene at Wayne Manor, and Bruce is surrounded by a bevy of beauties, and then one kind of jilted lover comes and tosses her drink in his face, and then I guess a kind of friend comes over and like offers him offers him a handkerchief to wipe his face. And it's like, man, Bruce, it seems like you pick the ones that aren't gonna end up like long term. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I mean, like initially you just think it's like, oh, because he just he needs a cover, because he's Batman, right? And he doesn't want to
Right.
bring in anyone that might potentially be used against him or whatever. But then you watch the movie and you see the story, and it's like, and you see how much his heart is broken by the rejection of Andrea, and it's like, oh, okay. So then that kind of like offhand comment means a lot more than you thought initially thought it did.
Yeah, and the other thing too is one thing about, like, you see like a lot of the tragedy in Batman too, where obviously, like, yeah, we all know that, like, his parents died like at a very young age, and he was raised by Alfred. And he does make this vow to his parents to, like, kind of avenge their deaths, and to kind of like take out crime, like what took them out. And but at the same tone is that what was I going to say? The fact that like the scene of like I'm struggling, like is it okay that like I when for me to even like fall in love with like this woman, and it's like, or like because he made that vow to his parents, but obviously like the pain was fading like as he grew closer to Andrea, and they had that scene in the graveyard. But then when she kind of betrayed that, is more of like, is this punishment for me for even like wavering in my vow? And when she left, that was just kind of like well, kind of like, well, obviously, like I can't delve into like, I can never let someone in like that ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And although like obviously there was a even like obviously the spoiler alert, whereas as the movie progresses, we find that the mask of Phantasm is actually Andrea, like trying to avenge the death of her father, and Bruce, slash Batman, or it's really Bruce trying to make it work with her. Like they do have a slight reconciliation,
Mm-hmm.
but finding out that she's actually, the person that he's going after, and it's like that was like really the last straw where it's like, because he even says like when he talking, because at first he thought it was her father that was the mask of Phantasm. It's like, I have to destroy him, right? And it kind of like she's like, yes. It's, and at the time we didn't realize it was actually Andrea that was the
The
anti-hero
Phantasm,
slash
yeah.
villain. And when it's finally revealed that she's the one, at least for when it's revealed that Bruce finds out that she's the one, it's like, I think that was really like the last nail in the coffin. That it's like it was just like, I can never give my heart to someone because something like always drags the people that I love into some sort of darkness, whether they whether it becomes like death or they end up becoming just like me, and I can never let someone in again.
Right,
And to
because
me that shows a real tragedy to Batman.
right, that he is somehow infecting people with this darkness. Um, despite his efforts, despite his intentions. Um,
And I think this movie is like, this is and I'm just looking at the Batman animated series kind of like lore, because it
mhm,
is slightly different from the rest of all the Batman like stuff, but
right,
to me this is where Batman no longer becomes like his alter ego. Batman, he becomes Batman at this point, and Bruce Wayne is the alter ego.
right, right. It's just like in Batman Begins, where Katie Holmes' character is saying like, oh, and then I found out about your mask, and then Bruce Wayne, says it's like, oh no, that's just that's just temporary. That's just something I do at night. And she's like, no, no. It's like and she grabs his face and it's like, no, this is your mask. Your true face is now the ones that all the criminals fear. And so, kind of in
Right.
that same spirit, that like when he finally suits up for the first time, and then and he puts on the mask and he turns around and Alfred sees him, and it's not this triumphant thing. It's like this horrible, grotesque thing that he's doing to himself, and it's not something to be applauded or cheered for. It's almost to be pitied.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I like the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy too, because like it's kind of like the same, like kind of like the the tragic story that I really like about Batman.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, yeah, and I mean in this, I don't know if it retcons it or it gives an origin story, but we get the origin of the Joker.
Yeah, at least in the animated series
Yeah,
version.
But I remember there was another.
This is very actually, and sorry to, I don't mean to interrupt, but like this kind of reminds me a little bit of the Tim Burton Batman film too.
Right. Yeah, because he's an enforcer for like the mob, which Andrea's father is linked to because he's helped them embezzle or launder money, which he himself then embezzles and sets aside for himself and for Andrea, and
Right.
which then puts Andrea on a similar path to Bruce because eventually the mob track them down because the reason why Andrea turns down Bruce's proposal is because she had to go on the run with her father.
Right.
And so, and then one day, the mob finally catch up, and who do they send to kill Andrea's father? But uh, a pre makeup Joker.
Yep.
And so we kind of get an origin story, but it's more in the line of like Robert said, the Tim Burton Batman, where it's like the Jack Napier type, as opposed to kind of the Killing Joke Joker, where he's a down on his luck comedian.
Yeah, there's a lot of like different like origins, like semi potential origins of the Joker. And that's, I think that's the kind of what makes Joker so great, is because
Right.
we really, there's such a mystery to who he actually is.
Right.
And
Yeah. I mean, because we have the Napier Joker. We have again the Killing Joke Joker, which I think is going to be, hopefully, well epitomized by this newest Joker movie that's coming out around our birthdays.
yeah, well, that'll be a movie review we do for in October.
There you go. Um, yeah, and then I mean, there's also like the kind of the god awful Joker in the Suicide Squad. Um,
Oh, the
but yeah,
worst.
just like all these different interpretations, and I mean, I don't think there is actually a canonical origin for the Joker, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I kind of like that about it.
Mm-hmm. Right, it's not really settled,
Well,
and
and even in
and
the,
which kind of goes to the stories that the Heath Ledger Joker tells in The Dark Knight, where it's like it's constantly shifting. It's like, oh, it's like, I got these scars, my father, it's like, or my wife, or or what have you. It
well,
just
and even in the comics, recent comics, where Batman was looking for the origin, who the hell the Joker actually is,
mm-hmm.
and he was able to find out that actually there are several different Jokers actually, and it's not just like one person, and
Right.
so it adds more mystery to the
Right, there was
Joker.
it was like a multiverse kind of thing, and then in the Batcave there was like a glint, and then he saw it, and it was like the smiley face button that the comedian from the Watchmen universe wears.
Yeah,
So that's like kind of a hint that's saying like, oh, this Joker is the Watchmen universe like anti-hero, the comedian.
right.
But
So
yeah,
how would you rate this movie, Andy? What or you have any other like finishing thoughts about Mask of the Phantasm?
no, I think everything that we wanted to say, I think we've said, and whatever I didn't want to say, I think you covered quite well. In terms of ratings, I definitely give it a 4.5.
Yeah, that's also my assessment.
Right? Because I mean, I'm not because it's a animated movie. They have to take a few shortcuts in terms of like transitions, and I don't. it wasn't like super solid, but 4.5 is still good.
Yeah. I'd also give it a 4.5. To me, if you're a fan of the Batman animated series, I think this is a must watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps give while it might not be canonical to the rest of like every like Batman comic per se, but I think it helps gives depth to the Batman the animated series universe.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to understand Batman a little bit better in that universe and why he's so kind of an asshole really to the people around him that supposedly care about him.
Right,
And
and
like
why he
you
keeps like
see
an
like
arm's length with like everybody, even like with all the Robins and Batgirl, and even Alfred to an extent. And I think like and even though Alfred is the closest person in his life, he's still kind of standoffish towards him.
right. And I think this movie helps give a little bit of depth to that, and that's why I like it so much.
Agreed. All right, well there you have it. That's our review of Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Me and Robert both give it 4.5 stars. We definitely recommend it, and we definitely encourage you to watch it. And if you do, and you have any more insights, then please leave it in the comment section down below. All right, we did 2.5 hours tonight.
It flew by. It really flew by.
It really did. I barely even felt it. I barely even felt
Thank
it.
God we were on time, by the way.
Good thing we were on time this week. Uh, no saying for next week. But you take your chances. You take your chances. All right, that will do it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday, sometimes live, for Nocturnal Transmissions. Don't forget to check out the library of other shows, Circle of Jerks podcast, Up by Up Down, and also, of course, Nocturnal Transmissions. Don't forget to check out our social media accounts, Twitter at PodcastCOJ, and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And that'll do it for us tonight. And for Robert and myself, we'll say goodnight. And don't do anything I would.